love is at the center of the decisions I make. And you may not believe that, you may not live that way, but you can respect that is at my core. See, that's what I'm talking about by respect. We may not have the same views, but I can respect your principles and you can respect mine. Hello, my friend, and welcome to this solo episode of A Call to Leadership. I'm Dr. Nate Sala, your host. And on these solo episodes, it's just the two of us working on one tool for your leadership tool belt, for your leadership playbook. And so you will have more resources to lead effectively, to have influence, but most importantly, to aim for greatness. And when I say greatness, it's not lording over others or having power, prestige, position. It's serving. Really the heart of effective leadership. The most effective leadership is when we can serve those who we would consider our followers. And how do we do that? We do that by providing a pathway for them to be successful within our leadership paradigm, whether it's a community, whether it's an organization, whether it's a family, whether it's friendships. No matter where we are, we have the opportunity to spread positive impact to help others achieve a collective goal, a mission, if you will, to aim for our vision based on a set of values. And so that's my plight in leadership. That's my joy to share with you. And so here we are, embarking on an episode today on a topic that I think is so incredibly relevant, the topic of respect. And wonder, think, how do you get respect, whether it's in an organization, whether it's in a family, whether it's in a community? Well, respect, it's been said, is earned. And I've found that many ways to foster respect. One of them, I'm just going to talk about one of them on this episode. And I just briefly gave a teaser as I was giving the intro. One of the ways that we garner respect in an organization, in a community, in a family, in friendships, in any type of relationship, is by understanding, and not only understanding, but being able to communicate our principles, our values. You say, Nate, I don't know if I can respect someone that has different values that perhaps are antithetical to my own. Now, how do you even describe, how could you even justify or defend a position that your values, your principles, if they are completely against mine, that I can respect you? And I'll tell you how. It's because you know where I stand. And we may not stand in the same place, but you can respect that I have boundaries and you have boundaries. And sometimes those boundaries don't overlap. Sometimes, for many of us, there are things that we don't agree on. We're not all the same, and that's okay. So I'll give you an example of respect, even though we had different principles. One of them comes from way back when I was young and dating. And I had met this girl who would eventually become my wife. Well, I had a lot of buddies, and they were my protectors, my guard, right? And they basically kept the girls away. And I had buddies, females and male buddies. And this particular one, this girl, who would be my wife eventually, said, look, you've got all your friends around you, and that's cool if you want to stay single. But you're going to have to make a decision on whether or not you want to commit to this relationship, because if that's the deal, I'm out. And honestly, I was like, whoa, we had different principles because I put my friends in front of my romantic relationships, and she wanted the romantic relationship in front. And it caused me to be like, wow, I really respect that. I respect that you're willing to walk away from this relationship because of your principles. And I had to think about that. Obviously, we got married, so I made some changes that were necessary. But it just is one example, one important example about how a difference in principle can certainly be respected. Here's the thing about what I believe. I believe that everything that I believe, I could be wrong about everything. And you say, Nate, could you really be wrong about everything? Of course, it's a general statement. The point is that I walk in enough, I would think, ability to know that I don't have all the answers. And so one of my core values is becoming a person who is not small, narrow-minded, but a person who's open to listen to others. That doesn't mean that I'm going to change my views like the changing of the wind. I need evidence. I need to think through, but I change. There's very few people who remain the same through their entire lives. I change because I get new information. I grow, and growing is changing. That doesn't mean that there's aspects of my core that change. My core is my core. And those are the principles that I'll live and I'll die by. One of them is love. If you're watching this, you can see my sign behind me. It says, let all that you do be done in love. And that is a core principle that I'll carry for the rest of my life. Is that principle that love is at the center of the decisions I make. And you may not believe that, you may not live that way, but you can respect that is at my core. See, that's what I'm talking about by respect. We may not have the same views, but I can respect your principles and you can respect mine. Now, if those principles hurt people, if those principles destroy lives, if those principles create chaos, then those principles, I will say, are foolish. And I would encourage you to reevaluate them, to walk in wisdom, not in folly. So as we talk about this subject, as we broach this idea of respect, you think, the old Rodney Dangerfield, what does he say? I get no respect, right? If you're a person who struggles with getting respect, I would encourage you to set some values that are at your base, your core, 3 to 7 values that are non-negotiables in who you are. Those become boundaries, friend. Those become borders, and they work in an organization. They work in a family. They work in your own personal life. What are 3 to 7 principles that are non-negotiable in your life? And I'm going to help you to identify some of those if you haven't already. And one of the ways we do that is to identify what not only is important to me, but who embodies values that are important to me. So I'll give you an example. Say you're going to assemble a team of leaders in an organization, right? And you're going to identify people who you say, you know what, this person I would love to have on my team. They are a superstar. They are an A player. They are somebody who I know if I had them with me and I had a group of people that embodied these different values, we would be unstoppable. All right. So think of one person, and then we can offline, you can add more people. I think of one person. Okay. So I'm going to think of one person who, if they were on my team, that my team would be on. So now I actually have people on my team who I believe are embodying these values, because clearly I've created these values that I live by, which I want people to emulate, because those are the values I believe are built for the success of my organization. But I'm going to think of someone who's not on my team for the sake of this exercise. And I want you to think of someone who's not on your team. So I'm thinking of someone who's not on my team that I think if they were on my team, that my team would be unstoppable. Okay, what are 3 characteristics, 3 values, if you will, 3 characteristics of that individual? And so one of the characteristics of the individual I'm thinking of is resilience. One characteristic of this individual I'm thinking of is just massive, and I mean massive resilience. And that resilience means that they, even though they falter, even though the odds are against them, even though they fail, they get back up. They will not stop. It's sheer will. It's resolve. That's one characteristic. Another characteristic that this person emulates is affability. What is affability? Affability is your likability. It's that people are drawn to you because you are a person who is enjoyable to be around. And affability is attractive. It's attractive in an organization. It's attractive in a family. That's a second characteristic. A third characteristic of this individual who I'm thinking of right now is the characteristic that this person has deep, deep integrity. In other words, they will not compromise their morals, their ethics, their moral compass, if you will, their beliefs. They're whole, they're undivided. So there's 3 values of someone who I believe would be integral to my team. Now I want you to do the same. Think of someone, and if you have to pause this, fine, or if you do it afterwards, who embodies those principles. Because as I prepare this exercise, you can see my values begin to emerge. My principles begin to emerge. I highly value resilience. I believe it's a non-negotiable. I believe it's essential in business. I believe affability is essential in fostering positive relationships, a positive work environment. We're going to talk about in a subsequent episode how to foster a positive work environment. That affability, that genuine kindness. And then thirdly, integrity is a non-negotiable. If you don't have integrity, you can't have trustworthiness. And you have to have trustworthiness to give someone a task or a role that they will be able to accomplish it without wandering or meandering off course. So those are just 3. Now, if I name 2 more people, I will come up with perhaps other ones or maybe some overlapping ones, but you can see how that develops into a set of core values, into a set of principles. Now, let's then take those principles and integrate them into your own boundaries and borders. So I want to be the kind of person who has massive resilience. I want to be the kind of person who has insane amount of affability, right? That Nate guy, boy, I just feel good when I'm around him, right? He exudes enthusiasm. He exudes encouragement. He's inspirational. He helps me. He doesn't want to harm me. He's someone who has just insane amounts of integrity. He's honest. He's honorable. He has massive moral fiber, right? Those are non-negotiable principles. And so those principles establish who you are and who you desire to be around. And so that said, it begins to form how you behave and what's acceptable in your world. Because if those aspects are non-negotiable for you, then who you have around you, you'll find that they understand these are non-negotiables. If we're going to have a relationship, if we're going to move in a direction together, if we're going to be on a team, these just cannot be compromised. And as soon as we start to lay that out, by the way, in ways that are not hypocritical, right? We've got to live them, because if you only speak them and don't live them, well, clearly you don't believe them. If you've listened to any other of my episodes, you might have heard me say this: to believe something is to be living it. So if you're not living it, then you don't believe it. So don't fake it. Be real, be genuine, be authentic, and begin to outline those values so that you're clear, because clarity, my friend, is power. And when you're clear on your values, when you're clear on your principles, and you communicate those with clarity, with effectiveness, then you stand in a place where others then desire to walk alongside of you because they share your principles. Remember, there are boundaries and borders, right? They're with everyone within the community of these beliefs, of these principles, then have a boundary and a border not to deviate from them. And everyone outside of them who don't share them don't gain access. It's really just that simple. Now you say, Nate, isn't that a little bit exclusive? Yeah, of course it is, right? Because what you want to do is you want to exclude the values that don't manifest your vision and mission. There's just some aspects of other values that don't fit. And that's okay. It's okay to say, you know what? There's certain values, there's certain principles that aren't necessarily essential for this activity, whatever it is. You can say, now you can exhaust yourself and say, well, aren't all principles important? No, because you can muddy things up. You want to have 3 to 7 core principles. You can have outliers and external ones and ones that are on the fray, but what are the very foundational, the main values that your organization, your family, your community, you believe to achieve where you want to go? That then will help you make decisions. If you're in a follower position, in other words, an employee, you can then consider which organizations align with my values. I'll give you another one of our core values. In our organization, and you might have heard me say this before, that when I hire people, I ask them, the first thing I ask them is, do you have a servant's heart? Because I value the servant's heart as a hallmark of effective leadership. And that's why I said aiming for greatness is really serving others, right? Now, I didn't come up with it. It's truly that depth of care for helping one another to achieve our shared objectives, to achieve our shared goals, to achieve our shared mission. And we can't do that unless our values, our principles are aligned, and we can respect one another because we know where we all stand. So there you have it, a quick rundown of how to establish your core values. So start today, mark it in stone. lay it as a foundation so that you can walk with confidence that you can achieve what you desire because you stand on knowing what my principles are and how to effectively communicate them so others who share those principles will join alongside of me so that we can work together and achieve far greater than we ever thought possible. Well, my friend, thank you for joining me on this episode of A Call to Leadership. I'm so glad you're here, and I'm so glad you spent your time with me. I'm honored and I'm privileged. Well, my friend, we did it again. I'm so glad you joined me on this episode of A Call to Leadership. If you've been with me on the show, listening in, you'll know this. But if you're new, you may not know that I created a free course for you that you don't need to provide an email address. It's Sala, and this is A Call to Leadership.